Tania Huertas, and I'll be talking about the history and evolution of rock and roll. Rock and roll, if you like it, if you feel it, you can't help but move to it, and that was said by Elvis Presley. Rock music is a collaborative effort of different aspects. It has continued to grow and has great significance. As a listener to rock and roll, I wanted to share its aspects and its impact, as well as examine them. Alan Freed first came up with the name in 1951. He hosted the first ever rock concert in Cleveland, Ohio on March 21st in 1952 called the Moondog Coronation. Dewey Phillips and William Haas were two other disc jockeys who helped spread rock and roll on their own radio stations. The foundation consisted of a 4/4 time signature. Lyrics include love, social, personal, and political issues. Bands typically include 3 to 5 members. Instruments include guitar, bass, drums, and keyboard. Instruments such as violin, cello, rhythm guitar, and saxophone have also been used. And the foundation of it was also based on blues, jazz, country, and gospel. With the name in place, the pioneers came. Pioneers such as the King of Rock, Elvis Presley, Chuck Berry, Buddy Holly, Bo Diddley, Little Richard, and Ritchie Valens helped popularize and establish and also transition it from blues to rock and roll. The pioneers played their music on radio, concerts, and televised events, and that helped gain and spread popularity, even reaching to other parts of the United States and out of it also. The British invasion, the Beatles, Gary and the Peacemakers, Freddie and the Dreamers, Animals, Rolling Stones, and the Yardbirds were all a part of said British invasion in the 60s. The Beatles being considered the most influential band of the 20th century, and in comparison, the Rolling Stones were one of the first ones to have a heavier sound. Along with the British invasion came the birth of many subgenres. In the 60s and 70s, there was psychedelic, glam, hard, shock, and roots rock, and heavy metal, with songs featuring counterculture attitudes. In the 70s and 80s came punk, grunge, and alternative rock, and they had more mature themes and rebellious attitudes. The 90s and 2000s had pop rock and indie rock, and these musicians, the musicians of today, had inspiration from their predecessors. With the growing subgenres, the influences and controversies still remained. Rock music reflected the social and unrest and resentment, such as the Vietnam War and the civil rights back in the 60s and 70s, and those incited feelings of escapism, and also riots and protests have been subject to songs such as "For Dead in Ohio" by Neil Young. Rock music at the beginning was seen as the devil's music because of Elvis Presley and how he danced, and has had several negative connotations with substance abuse and legal troubles, such as the murder allegations against Sid Vicious with the death of his girlfriend, Nancy Spungen. Even though there were controversies, music festivals became popular. The biggest one, Woodstock, 3 days on a dairy farm in Bethel, New York on August 15, 1969, with headliners such as Jimi Hendrix, Santana, Crosby, Stills, Nash, and more. Max Yerker, the owner of the dairy farm, was so amazed how 500,000 people were able to just come and listen to music together and enjoy it. Live Aid was a benefit concert for famine raising awareness for famine in Africa. In Wembley Stadium in London and JFK Stadium in Philadelphia. Over 75 acts performed, including Queen, David Bowie, Elton John, Madonna, and Tina Turner. Altogether, they raised $127 million for said famine relief. Music festivals that are still going on today include Lollapalooza and Rockfest in Chicago and Warped Tour, each of them held annually. Woodstock and Live Aid showed how rock and roll music is powerful. Today, there are a multitude of subgenres with their own musicians. Over 75 million people listen to rock music, and despite the controversies rock music has had in the past, unity can still be achieved. And it continues to evolve and grow and has such an amazing worldwide recognition, spanning from the United States to Great Britain to places such as Japan. The great thing about rock and roll is you realize the top of the mountain is big enough for more than one band, and that was said by Paul Stanley, the frontman of Kiss. These are my works cited, and a special thanks to my aunt and uncle, Myrna and Janito, who helped me understand what it was like living in the 60s with all of these new musics coming out every day. With that being said, long live rock and roll.
Whoa.